Oh, wait, I can't hear you. Wait, are we live? Oh, hello everybody, welcome back to the United Stand. It is Erik Ten Hag's press conference, and Erik Ten Hag shuts down the rumours of a squad overhaul at Manchester United, calls it a joke and says that he's happy with the squad that he's got, the basic squad that he's got. Obviously it needs some improvements, but Erik Ten Hag shuts down the reports coming out about a full squad overhaul. How do you feel about that? Also gives us some injury updates on Marcus Rashford, Scott McTominay and Bruno Fernandes could be out against Crystal Palace. Going to talk about that. Also gets asked about Jadon Sancho, very complimentary of him and leaves his future open. Speaks about the building relationship with Jason Wilcox and what Manchester United need to do going forward to improve and get better, and his hopes for European football this season. Welcome everybody to the show. It is me again. Mark still being attacked by that fly, and I don't know where he's at, but hopefully he'll be back and ready for the evening show. But we're going to get into Erik Ten Hag's press conference. So straight off the bat, he talks about injuries. Scott McTominay, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, Johnny Evans and Martial injury update. So straight away he said, Scott hasn't trained so far this week, but I expect him back in training on Saturday, and we have to see if he's 100% available for a part of the game. So that's good news, because honestly when Scott McTominay originally got injured, I thought it was going to be a season ender from the way he reacted. He said on his story on Instagram it's not as bad as he originally thought. So the fact that Scott McTominay could be back for the next game is something that I didn't expect. So that's good, because we need him as part of our squad. After that, he says, after the Burnley game, we had an issue with Bruno. He's a doubt for Monday's game, but we all know Bruno, never rule him out of any game. He will do his best to be available. And Bruno Fernandes, I think he'll play. I think he'll play against Palace. He never misses any games. But the fact that Bruno keeps... The thing is for me, it's the fact that Bruno keeps having these doubts shows how worn out he is. So Bruno Fernandes played with a broken hand against Sheffield United. He needs a bit of a break. We need to have a squad that can afford certain players to get some rest here and there. Bruno Fernandes has been playing non-stop for Manchester United ever since he arrived, and it feels like quite often recently, Ten Hag said in his press conference, Bruno is a doubt, but he probably will make it. You know what Bruno's like, he'll try and be available for every game. Sometimes as a manager, you need to step in and be like, you know what, you need a little bit of a break. You need to be subbed off in this game, not because you're playing poorly, because you are our leader, and I believe Bruno Fernandes is a brilliant footballer, but you need to intervene and be like, we need you fresh, we need you healthy. We have an FA Cup final coming up. I think sometimes the manager should intervene on these things. So Bruno Fernandes, I think he will play against Palace, but again, he is a doubt, and I think he's being completely worn out and worked to the bone, and I think that's something that Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag need to address, to be honest with you. And then he also speaks about Johnny Evans. He says he returned today to team training, so Johnny Evans is back in team training, so is Anthony Martial. Ricky is having a party somewhere. I sent it him, and he said his two favourite players are back in Johnny Evans and Anthony Martial in training. Obviously, Johnny Evans and Martial won't be available for the game against Palace. It will be too quick of a turnaround for them. Both been out with long-term injuries, Martial more than Johnny Evans. But I can already see the Anthony Martial FA Cup final against Manchester City. He always has a good game against Manchester City. If we can keep him fit for that game, don't play him in any dead rubber games before then, keep him fit for the FA Cup final. Imagine Anthony Martial scores the winning goal in the FA Cup final against Manchester City. He's always been a bit of an issue for Manchester City. It could happen, but a little bit of an injury boost with Johnny Evans and Anthony Martial coming back, but also frustrating on the Bruno Fernandes front, and then on Marcus Rashford as well. He says he can't tell where his injury is at right now. He said last week after Coventry, he has an issue and it hasn't healed so far. So Marcus Rashford is still out injured and probably will not make the squad against Palace on Monday, which gives Anthony Ahmad another opportunity to try and impress before Rashford comes back into the team. Hopefully Rashford can get better as soon as possible. You never wish injury on a player, but I think, you know, Marcus Rashford having a break right now, it might be good. It might be good for him to kind of take himself out the spotlight, get himself back up to match fitness and get ready for the business end of the season, and also gives Anthony Ahmad a little bit more game time to try and impress Erik Ten Hag. But let me know in the comments your thoughts on that. Going to get on to the juicy stuff about Sancho and the challenges that Ten Hag has faced this season in a second. And you can let me know your thoughts on Erik Ten Hag's comments. The thing is with Erik Ten Hag for me is when Melissa Reddy had that segment on Sky and she said that she's been told that Ten Hag is talking himself out of a job, I can understand where that is coming from. I want to build around this manager. I want to give him a chance under the new structure. But the way he speaks, sometimes it makes me lose some faith in him. Like the way he speaks in a second about not needing a squad overhaul. Like, just be honest. With the way he speaks after a game about how we played well. We played really exciting football. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Sometimes I'm just like, be honest with the fans, be open and honest with the fans. I feel like he's trying to praise his team to try and get the best out of them, and that's his way of managing them. But I don't know if it's the right thing to do at this point in time. But Erik Ten Hag's the manager, so he can decide what the right port of call is. And I suppose he has criticised players in the past, and maybe that's come back to bite him. But sometimes I'm like, just say it how it is. In Manchester United, say that, yeah, we do need improvements. Say that we do need to upgrade the squad. I mean, Rangnick came out and said that we needed open heart surgery. I don't expect him to go to that extent, but be honest with the fans, because we're the ones watching every single week. And when you tell me something that I just know isn't the truth, it just makes me lose a little bit of faith. We've got Mark Glazerbridge in the chat saying, I'm in the 90% club for Sancho returning to Manchester United. I mean, it is an interesting topic. Erik Ten Hag does address that. And I know we did the morning show talking about Jadon Sancho. A lot of people disagreed with bringing him back, but it is something that there is going to be needed to have a conversation about. So after the injuries, Erik Ten Hag got asked about Jadon Sancho and what he thought of his performance. And Erik Ten Hag said, yesterday he played a very good game and he's a very good player. Yesterday he showed why Manchester United bought him and showed he represents a high value for Manchester United, which is good. I'm happy for Jadon for the performance yesterday, and we'll see what is going to happen in the future. So again, leaves the door open, doesn't say Sancho's definitely going, says that he has a high value. Honestly, I think with Erik Ten Hag, he said in his previous press conference around Sancho, it was never about the talent, which basically you could infer it was about the punctuality and the attitude and maybe the training methods. And what he did call him out for originally was training. Again, I spoke about Sancho on the morning show, so I don't need to go into my opinions on that again. If you want to know my opinions on Sancho, you can watch the morning show. But Erik Ten Hag, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? Is he going to come out and say, oh yeah, first decent performance in 3 years? Doesn't change my mind. He's not going to say that. He's, you know, at the end of the day, Erik Ten Hag probably wants Sancho to do well because it puts value on his price. Because if Ten Hag's there, I think he will get sold. But also, at the same time, if Sancho absolutely rips it up, which he did last night and continues to do so, and if he wins a Champions League with Dortmund, it might make Erik Ten Hag look a little bit silly for not being able to handle him as a talent. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. But the reports coming out before the press conference were that Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag are still planning for Jadon Sancho to leave Manchester United in the summer. They were the reports coming out just before the press conference. And there was also reports coming out that Manchester United are still planning for Jadon Sancho to leave, even if Ten Hag wasn't the manager going into the summer. So thoughts on that? I disagree. I think if Ten Hag left, Sancho would stay. But if obviously Erik Ten Hag stays, Sancho will leave. But what was he going to say on Sancho? I think it was quite the obvious answer on that. Ten Hag then gets asked about Jason Wilcox, and he said, we talk every day from now, from the last week. In a very short period, we have built an intense relationship. Steady on there, Erik. I'm joking. We are working now to have a plan. We have a plan already, but he stepped in, and of course, we have to get aligned. It takes time, but we don't have so much time. And I think he's talking there about we already had a plan for the transfer window, but now Jason Wilcox is in. We have to have our plans aligned, and we have to build a plan going into transfer window because we don't have much time. And, you know, with the reports coming out that the club was still planning to continue with Erik Ten Hag, it makes sense for Erik Ten Hag to be being very involved with these conversations with Jason Wilcox. And that's good to hear. It's good to hear that they are building a strong relationship. It is good to hear that they're talking every day because, one, Jason Wilcox gets familiar with Erik Ten Hag and also gains opinions on whether he thinks he's the right manager to take Manchester United forward and whether he's going in the right direction. Also gives Jason Wilcox an insight into what structure Erik Ten Hag has been dealing with, little to no structure, I assume, where Erik Ten Hag's at with the squad, and there'll be so much conversation behind the scenes that we won't be getting told. Like Ten Hag's coming out to the media and saying, it's a joke about a squad overhaul, I'm very happy with my squad. I can basically guarantee you behind the scenes he's saying, we need this, 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 this and this. Like, unless genuinely he is in cuckoo land, he's just telling the media what he wants them to hear, I think, right now, because he's having them conversations about the squad behind the scenes and he's trying to big his squad up for the end of the season because Ten Hag needs Europa League for the budget. Ten Hag needs an FA Cup final to help keep a good performance in an FA Cup final to help turn the tide on the way that he's progressing at Manchester United and to give him strength in keeping his job. The players that we bring in the summer aren't able to do that for him now. It's only the players that are here that are able to perform for him. So I think Ten Hag in his mind is bigging up the current squad because he wants them to perform for him. He's like basically, he's on his knees for them to give him a performance before the end of the season. So I think he feels like he's doing the right thing. But behind the scenes with Jason Wilcox, he absolutely will be saying what needs to be done and calling out the standards of Manchester United. I'm sure of that, unless he is in cuckoo land, like I said. So I think Ten Hag will be saying something completely different behind the scenes than what he's saying to the public and to the media. Whether you think that's the right thing to do, get in the chat. When I'm watching the press conference, it drives me mad because I just know what he's saying isn't true. And we used to have this with Ollie sometimes where he'd come out and say stuff and you'd be like, I just know that isn't what you actually think. Like with Ralph Rangnick, you got that honesty. With Jose Mourinho, you got that honesty. But it's the way different managers work. The one thing I would say is, I'll move on to the next quote and then I'll talk about the Ten Hag talking about the squad overhaul and whether we think that's going to happen or not. Dr. Kempo says Erik Ten Hag is a delusional manager. People started calling Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a liar towards the end of his tenure at Manchester United in the press conferences. I don't think I'm not labelling anybody a liar, but he's picking and choosing what he's going to say. And I mean, lying is a strong word. I feel like I think you'd call it a white lie. He thinks he's doing it for the greater good, but it drives the fans mad. But he's trying to get the best out of his team, so he's trying to walk that line. But Erik Ten Hag on a squad overhaul, and I wanted to bring this in because when I read this, I thought, Goldbridge keeps banging on about how Erik Ten Hag needs to do a squad overhaul, how for Erik Ten Hag to be successful, he needs a squad overhaul. Everyone talks about squad overhaul, squad overhaul. I hear it every day. Everyone gets excited when the reports come out that only Mainu, Højlund and Garnacho are off the table to be sold. We all hear them reports and we heard him recently and everyone is most Man United fans are in agreement that the squad does need an overhaul. But this quote, initially, it shocked me and I was like, this isn't good signs. So Ten Hag got asked about another squad overhaul and the reports about the squad overhaul coming out over recent days. And he said, it's a joke. As long as I've worked every summer, every window, 200 players getting interest from Manchester United. We did some research and also every summer we sell all of our players in our squad, which you make of all of the headlines and take responsibility of how you make such a headline. Find a good source if there's some truth in it. Some scathing words from Erik Ten Hag on the reports of a squad overhaul completely shut it down. I mean, he's right in the sense of we do get linked to every player under the sun. Agents do it all the time to try and drive sales to their players. Other clubs do it all the time to try and drive sales to their players. If a club wants to sell someone or a player wants to move, attach Manchester United to him, it gets the name out there because we get the most clicks. Like, that is true. But realistically, we actually don't get linked to selling all our players every summer. The fans want to sell players that aren't good enough, but we always come to the conclusion that's probably not going to happen because the fans know we have a track record of not being able to sell players, and when we do, we sell them for next to nothing and do really poor deals when it comes to it. So we're actually not like Man United fans don't expect to sell everyone every summer. Like they want to, they don't want to sell everyone, but they want to do a squad overhaul because the fans feel like it's needed, but they don't expect to. So I agree and don't agree with him on what he's saying. But to me, what the red flags were in that is, does Erik Ten Hag not think that we need a squad overhaul? because, like I said, behind the scenes, I can guarantee he does. Surely he does. But he goes on and says, the base of our squad is very good. We're not going to sell the main part of our squad. So, again, Erik Ten Hag, what I think he's doing is putting when I kind of gathered my thoughts and got myself together, he is not going to come out and say, yeah, by the way, I do want to sell my whole squad that has to play an FA Cup final for me and has to play for European football for me till the end of the season. Because he's got to use these players now. And if he's coming out in press conference saying, yeah, we do need to sell them all, the players are going to be like, hang on a second, if you plan to sell me anyway, it gives them, it demotivates them. So I get why he's saying that. I mean, realistically, what he should do, if he did say, you know, yeah, we need improvements, yeah, we need to look at improving our squad, it should get the players to think, hang on a second, I want to stay at Manchester United, I'm going to up my game even further to prove why I should stay here. But as we know, not everybody has that mentality, unfortunately. So, honestly, if Ten Hag had come out and said, yeah, I think we do need to look at our squad, I think we do need to look at the levels and where we're at, and I think we do need to make vast improvements, I'd be clapping him. I'd be saying, yeah, you are right, Erik, and we can kind of understand partly where the performances have come this season because you're being honest with us. But he's not doing that. He's going down the route of backing his players, hoping to get better performances out of them in that way. You know, people talk about Erik Ten Hag's man management skills. For me, it's like players should always want to do better and try and prove themselves to stay at Manchester United. But like I said, I feel like Erik Ten Hag is saying one thing but probably thinking another behind the scenes. Well, I'm hoping so anyway, because we do need a squad overhaul. And I see a lot of people in the comments saying Erik Ten Hag's not the guy that's going to do a squad overhaul for us. I think when you initially watch the press conference and watch and read the statements, you'll think that's what you'll initially think, and that's what I thought. But then when you take a second to think it through, I actually do think Ten Hag can be ruthless. I do think Ten Hag would be wanting to do a squad overhaul if he had the facilities to do so. But he recognises that in this football club, especially considering we're only just getting in the structure, we've only just got Jason Wilcox in, we've not got Omar Barada until July, we've not got Dan Ashworth in yet, Rome is not built in a day, and this is going to be a slow and steady process. He can't just write off all of his players. You know, he's got to do it slowly, but I do think given the time and given the structure, if he's not crazy, he will try and ease out the players that aren't good enough and bring in better players. But the one thing I would say is Ten Hag shouldn't be in charge of the players that we do bring in. He should have a say. He should tell Dan Ashworth and the sporting director what style of players he wants, what suits him. If they're saying, look, Erik, we're looking at Branthwaite and Antonio Silva, which one do you think suits you more? Like, he should be able to have a say in that, but he shouldn't just pick the players because, you know, this is someone who wanted Nunes, Gakpo and Antony as his front three for Manchester United. So you need to, like, I know he didn't always get his first choices, but some of his transfer targets have been very questionable. So there's a load of things that need to happen. First of all, we need to start getting the structure in place. We need to get to a point where Erik Ten Hag doesn't have to come out and tell white lies to the media, and he can be more honest. And we need to get to a point where we have a structure above Erik that is massively helping him, because so far I feel like he's just been doing basically everything himself with a lot of compromises made along the way. Erik Ten Hag also gets asked about the challenges he faces, and he said, "We all know that we are still below the levels and expectations of Manchester United." That's a bit of honesty. And he says, "So we have to catch up, and now I'm going into my 5th window. 2 windows quite okay. 2 we missed. We have to make new improvements to the squad, but there is a base of this squad that is very good." So again, at least he's saying we do need to make improvements. I mean, I'm not going to give him a round of applause to that. I mean, I could ask anybody if Manchester United needs to make improvements and they'd say, yeah. Honestly, like, I took my friend Leah to United the other week against Burnley, and she's not really that, like, she likes watching United with me. She used to always watch it with me at uni, but she's not like that clued up on football. And she was saying, like, really? Like, this is the standard of Manchester United? I was like, yeah. So, like, anybody can kind of come to that conclusion, but the fact I found it interesting that he says about this is going to be his 5th window. He's had 4 windows so far. So he's had 2 summers and 2 January. And he specifically points out that he's missed 2 January windows. And we have basically missed 2 January windows. Last year, he got Sabitzer and Wout Weghorst on loan, which was, I mean, basically nothing. Probably should have got more out of Sabitzer. Now he's playing so well for Dortmund as well. And this January, we did nothing, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, we have missed 2 windows, and you can't afford to do that when you're a club like Manchester United and you're in the position that we're in. The other 2 windows, he said, quite okay. He didn't say they were great. He said they were okay. And in hindsight, let's be honest, last summer, it was bang average. And that's being nice. I think Mason Mount's a good player, but he's been injured the whole season. We've not been able to utilise him. Andre Onana, I actually think that he's probably our signing of the season. And if he's signing of the season, that shows where we're at, because he had such a shaky start. And now he's finally like coming good in 2024, but he's still not at the level that we know he can be. You have Rasmus Højlund, again, really happy with the potential for the future, but he's someone that's going to progress over time, and he's coming into a team that's underperforming and not playing to his strengths. And then, who else did we sign? Amrabat is failed. Johnny Evans on a free was decent considering, but we should have realistically bought a centre-back. And then the first transfer window that Erik Ten Hag came in, at the time we all thought it was pretty good. Looking back on it, Malacia, not seeing the best out of him. We saw it a tiny bit, but then he's been injured all season this season. Casemiro was a shocker looking back. And I'm going to hold my hands up. I was buzzing with that, and I was buzzing with it in the first year. But hindsight, that was a shocker to put him on a 5-year deal. It should have been like a 2-year deal maximum. Martinez, I thought I was buzzing with that signing. I'm happy we made it. But injuries have kind of debilitated what he's been able to provide for us. Anthony, not lived up to the price tag. So, you know, Erik Ten Hag has had trouble in transfer windows, and I think the main reason for that is because he was trusted too much in terms of he would say what players he wanted and then they'd go after them all season. If we couldn't get them, it'd be an emergency backup, hit the panic button. For example, he wanted Frankie de Jong, panic button, he ended up with Casemiro, which changed his whole plans and the whole way he wanted to play. Man United hadn't come up with a backup plan that still had the same similar attributes to Frankie de Jong. They just started ringing up other clubs and being like, oh, we can get Casemiro from Real Madrid, let's go and get him. So I feel like just the transfer windows have been handled wrong. I think Ten Hag's been given too much power a little bit, but also when the first options weren't available, panic buttons were hit. And I just think the culture of the club hasn't navigated good transfer windows for Erik Ten Hag, and that's something that needs to change under the new structure. And I think Ten Hag needs to accept he's going to have less control in transfer windows. And then we move on to Erik Ten Hag talks about top 6 or top 7 in Europa League, and he says, of course, it is important. We have 2 opportunities, one in the league and one in the cup. In my opinion, we have to try and nail down 6th spot in the league, because if we lose against Man City, 6th spot will get Europa League. And if we win against Man City, you know, we'd get Europa League anyway from the FA Cup. But realistically, we were probably, like, I don't want to be negative, anything can happen on the day. But if I asked you to put 100 grand on the FA Cup semi-final, if I asked you to put 100 grand on the FA Cup final, you'd be putting your 100 grand on City to win, wouldn't you? Like, you would be. So, you know, City are probably the most likely favourites to win that game, which means 6th spot will go to Europa League and we won't have to do the playoff situation. So, Man United, it's sad that we're trying to hold out for Europa League, but that's the situation we're in. We need it money-wise, and we also need it because I don't want to be playing in the Conference League, I really don't. And Europa League is actually a competition that I think Manchester United could do well in next season. And we've got to admit where we're at. The current quality of our squad is Europa League level. It's not Champions League level, so... And he also says it's important because it will have an impact on the budget, and I'm sure, he also says this, I'm sure Manchester United is a very attractive team and a club to play for. Many players will be very happy to play for Manchester United, I'm sure. So, yeah, basically bigs up trying to get players in at Manchester United. But like I said, Manchester United still, there's going to be players that want to play for us. Romano's spoken on the show about Todibo preferring Premier League over the Atletico Madrid move. Like, the Premier League is a very attractive prospect. Man United is still a very attractive prospect, but we're becoming less and less attractive. Look at Sancho. Came to United, career got killed off, moved away, back to looking good again. Mason Mount's coming to Manchester United. I know he's had injuries, but it just feels like players' careers come to a halt when they come here, and players will be looking around at that. So Ten Hag does need to big up Manchester United as a place for players to come. And also, players will be looking and thinking, hang on a second, Erik, all of the players that you sign, they don't even play for you. Like, realistically, like, you signed Amrabat, he never plays. Like, Anthony, he's not even a starter anymore. I mean, people would argue, does he deserve to be? But he's not even a starter anymore for under Erik Ten Hag, really. I mean, Rasmus plays, Onana plays, but not all of his signings have really had a fair crack of the whip at Manchester United, to be honest with you. It's like, even when Mason Mount's been available, we don't know where he's really going to play or if he is going to get in the team. So it'll be interesting to see how this transfer window goes. I do think we'll still be able to attract players if we're not in the Champions League. Probably of course it is a disadvantage, but we need the Europa League. We massively need it, and that's why people keep saying the season's written off. These games don't even mean anything. Yes, they do, because I want to get 6th spot, because the likelihood is that 6th spot is going to be available for the Europa League, and we need that. We need to be in the Europa League, especially over the Conference League. Before doing any qualifiers, we need to be in the Europa League next season. There's no chance of the Champions League, but we need that money for the transfer window, because like I said, even though Ten Hag's pushing out the narrative, we don't need that much of an overhaul. We absolutely do, and he'll know that, and I'm hoping to God them conversations are happening behind the scenes. Got another super chat in from Patrick Lynch, saying, with regard to transfers, in hindsight it's been bad, but with Murto and Arnold were doing the deals before, their track record is terrible too. Yeah, exactly. Ten Hag has nowhere to hide under the new structure, which is why, I think this is why, even though Ten Hag has made me lose faith in him, and I'm questioning him a lot, I'm going to be honest, I really am starting to reevaluate a lot of things, I still want to see him under a new structure, because I want to give him that opportunity. But under the new structure, which isn't even going to be in place properly in the summer, let's be honest, because we've not even got Dan Ashworth in yet, even though Sir Jim said it's going to be soon in that meeting, according to Adam Crafton. And we've not got Omar Barada in yet. We've still not got the full team together, Avengers Assemble. We've still not got it together, so this summer you're not even going to have that. But next season, start of next season, and in January next season, we will have it all put together. So we're not going to be able to hide behind the excuses, well, it's Murto and Arnold. So Ten Hag's going to have to, take responsibility, and that's where you'll really see if he's up to it, where we're at. And I think he deserves at least that judgment. Tom Edwards says Ten Hag is a habitual liar. Levi Pelager says a squad that's not good enough and struggling anyway, acting like Mourinho and saying, yeah, get rid of them all, isn't going to help with our player value. That's another thing, player value. We want clubs to be interested in our players. We had a good season last season, and we actually had interest. Remember? There was interest in Maguire, there was interest in McTominay, there was interest in players at Manchester United. I think Atletico Madrid were interested in Lindelof as well. This summer, are we going to get the same interest? I mean, Maguire and McTominay would definitely have interest again, because they've been 2 performers for United this season. But Wan-Bissaka could do with some interest there. You look, Casemiro, Jesus, he's playing himself out of a transfer, isn't he? But we need some, like you said, we do need some interest. And Gaming UK says, hello to the United Stand, thank you for your super chat. Sell Greenwood and Sancho, 110 million easy. I actually hopefully will be doing a show coming up about where we're going to find the money for our transfers, and it's really interesting doing some research on it, what players I'd sell, how much we could get for them, and yeah, it'll be interesting. I think with the value that Sancho's putting on himself right now, if we don't keep him, at least we can get a decent amount of money back. Anthony Murray says, Rashford out of the spotlight. You've not seen his latest rap video, managing his injury with utter professionalism. That video with Meeks that's going around Twitter is an old video, and people trying to put that out, it's just agenda at that point. It's like, you should just, I don't get why that video is surfaced now, it's from ages ago. But anyway, Rashford is recovering from his injury. He was injured against Coventry, and I think being out of the spotlight right now is probably one of the better things for him. And Hopefully he can bounce back, but we'll see. Anyway, guys, make sure you hit a like on the video. This was Erik Ten Hag's press conference reaction. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking around Erik Ten Hag, what you're thinking about what he's saying. Honestly, if it wasn't for bringing the information to you guys at the United stand, I wouldn't be that interested in watching Erik Ten Hag speak at the moment, because most of it isn't actually what I think the truth is, to be honest with you. And I'm not pinning that on Erik Ten Hag. I just think he's in a really awkward position right now, where he's trying to balance squad harmony, value in the players for the summer, the what's riding on the rest of the season, but also trying to give answers that is going to satisfy the fans, which I think's pretty impossible to do right now. But look, everyone, make sure you hit a like on the video on your way out. Mark will be back later for the evening show. Make sure you tune into that. But everyone, Palace on Monday, Selhurst Park away. I wish I could say I was expecting a win, but I think Palace will outplay us 100%. And that isn't good. That's a slight on Ten Hag that I think now are going into most games thinking the opposition team's going to outplay us. It's not me being negative. Selhurst Park away. They're a proper ground and they can hurt us. They've done that before. But look, everyone, see you later. We'll see you on the next show and enjoy the rest of your day.